What is going on, everybody? Well, we are slowly approaching Christmas, and every year I feel like I try to review quite a few Christmas movies. Last year, in particular, I watched quite a few Christmas horror movies, and this year, not as much. I haven't really watched as many holiday themed movies as I normally do. I fit in a few here and there, but my focus has kind of been elsewhere, catching up on specific things, watching other genres. But I wanted to at least knock off one movie that I feel like had been on my radar for a while. And I've watched a ton of Christmas horror movies over the years, but this is one that I feel like is always on the list of like must watch Christmas horror movies. And I've heard a lot of praise surrounding this movie over the years, even from like John Waters. I remember reading something from John Waters about how much he loves this movie. And I've heard a lot of people out there review it in a very positive light. And so for that very reason, I was looking forward to checking this movie out. And the film I'm going to be discussing with you today is Christmas Evil. Christmas Evil is directed by Lewis Jackson. Garbed in his red suit, Harry, a toy factory worker, decides that the only thing that he can do to save the spirit of Christmas is to become Santa Claus himself and make all of the naughty townspeople pay in blood. So I was really looking forward to watching this movie. A person dressed in a Santa Claus costume going on a murder rampage. Obviously, we've seen this film before. It's happened in quite a few movies, but I was looking forward to watching it. And this is entertaining. I really enjoyed it. I think it's very flawed. There are some moments that I feel like could really be tuned up a little bit to make it more effective and streamlined. I feel like it's a little bit bloated, especially in the middle. Some of the psychological conflict from the lead character that they introduce in relation to characters that he works with in the toy factory, some of it feels a little forced and hokey, not necessarily in an entertaining way, but I don't think it pulls away from the overall experience being enjoyable. And I'm going to talk about it a little bit today when I break the movie down. So in the movie, we are introduced to Harry, and we see Harry when he's a young kid with his brother going to bed on Christmas, and he wakes up in the middle of the night when he hears something in his room. He leaves his room, goes down his staircase, and he sees Santa Claus getting physical with his mother, and it traumatizes him years later. And we see him as an adult man. He works at a toy factory. He used to work on the line, but he's now been promoted to some type of supervisory position. And we see him at his house, and he has these books in his house that he literally is watching the children in his community and keeping track of whether or not they've been good or bad. And he's kept lengthy notes on them, and he is kind of just put off by people in general. He thinks the world is a really awful place, and you can tell that a lot of it is associated with the psychological trauma that he had as a kid. And so throughout the film, we see him interact with his co-workers. His brother, who's now a grown adult, sees him as a little off and not normal. And on Christmas Eve, he ends up putting on a Santa suit and like gluing a Santa Claus beard to his face and starts delivering toys and going place to place. But to the people that he has deemed bad or people that get in his way, he murders them. And the entirety of the film is us watching this man in a Santa Claus costume go on a murder rampage. Like I said, this movie is very enjoyable. It's not perfect by any means, but it's very entertaining. And a lot of that has to do with Brandon Maggart's performance, who plays Harry. This movie, I've seen a lot of comparisons to Maniac. I like Maniac a lot more than this movie. I think psychologically it's much more fascinating. I like the way it's shot. Tom Savini's practical effects are much better than anything that's included in this film. But I do like when the movie gets a little bit into the psyche of the character, because it is relatively sad when you think about someone going through that like psychological trauma at a young age, no one really kind of talking him through what happened when he was a kid, which causes him to feel all of these effects later in his life. And there's like that sadness there of like this sending this person over the edge to where they kind of just lose their mind. And a lot of that is due to this performer's fantastic performance. I think he's very committed. I think the best moments for him are towards the end when he's in the Santa Claus costume. I think when he is feeling his truest form and is like, this is who I'm meant to be. It's really interesting to see him kind of shift from this very timid, to himself guy early on in the movie who lets people push him around quite a bit. And that performance is really great. Not everyone in the movie is that good. This feels very 80s, which in moments I really like. Other moments doesn't work as well. Like some of the performances are really phoned in. I get it probably didn't have the biggest budget imaginable, but regardless, it's enjoyable. It's pretty well shot. Some of the editing is a little jarring, and I don't know whether or not that's the editor trying to make it feel kind of like psychologically disjointed by cutting quickly. But I didn't like some of the decision making in the editing as much as others. But overall, it's very well shot. The movie looks really good. There's a lot of attention to detail in just the little things, which I always appreciate when it comes to cinematography, paying little attention to detail and specifics to keep you hooked on the screen. And it's very competently shot. The kills in this movie, some of them are better than others, being that this came out in 1980. A lot of it's either off screen or the budget just didn't accommodate for like a really intense gore. There's some moments that are better than others. There's one scene in particular that's kind of eye rolly bad. But I still enjoyed it. I think, like, you know what the movie's going for. You think in the 1980s, I'm sure this is one of those movies that was boycott like crazy because you're tarnishing the good name of Christmas by creating a horror movie. And I think that's such bullshit. Do whatever you want. Like, I love crazy Christmas movies because Christmas is one of those weird times a year where, like, everyone is supposed to feel this happy, joyous feeling. But for so many people, that's not really the case, whether that be not having enough money to get gifts, internal conflict with family, just all different kinds of things. I feel like it's a very conflicting time of year, and utilizing horror to kind of showcase the other end of what the holidays can feel like for so many people is very important. One of my favorites, I love Michael Dougherty's Krampus. I love that movie so much. I think it just captures the dark side of Christmas so perfectly. And I like movies like that. Don't get me wrong, I'm a huge fan of like a lot of the sentimental, really sappy Christmas movies, but there's something about this type of movie that I always find very enjoyable around this time of year. And it was just a really fun viewing experience. It's not a perfect movie by any means. Like I said, I feel like especially towards the middle part of the film, it starts to drag a little bit. Where I started to get bored. Like there were moments where I was just like, okay, you could tune this up. It's not really diving into the psychology of the character enough for me to stay completely and totally immersed, but I really appreciated it overall. And I think if you're looking for a fun Christmas time slasher that might have a little more to it than you'd expect, Christmas Evil is worth checking out for that very reason. So have you seen Christmas Evil? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought the movie was enjoyable. I was really entertained by it, and I definitely watch it again. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.